Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Sunday evening as we take a look at, excuse me, what the models have been doing with regards to the next couple of weeks. And we continue to see increasing signs that there's going to be some kind of, pattern realignment, let's call it, or a pattern change. Again, it's a very grueling process, but I want to just show you as we go through. Well, it was this weekend. Okay, so we got that quick shot of cool air, but you can see the large extent of above normal temperatures covering much of Canada, particularly up in the polar regions. And, as we move through time, what begins to happen is that the area of above normal temperatures in Canada begins to shrink, as does the area in the United States. Now, as we move into Thanksgiving week, we see below normal temperatures covering the eastern third of the United States for much of the week into that weekend that follows. Also, notice below normal temperatures in eastern Canada, below normal temperatures up in northwestern Canada. You still have that big pocket of above normal temperatures up near the polar region. So that's telling us that cold air is attempting to be displaced southward. You still have this strip of above normal temperatures in through central Canada and down through the Midwest and into the lower Mississippi Valley and back through Texas. So there's probably some kind of ridging there that's causing that. But the fact that we're seeing this is telling us that there's some kind of blocking that's developing, or the North Atlantic Oscillation is going to turn negative as we go through the last couple of weeks of the month of November. And when we look at the indices, that is indeed the case. We'll pull them up here for you, and you can see what it's showing. And actually, some of the longer range, long range on this has the NAO going negative into early December. So you can see we're kind of sharply positive at the moment, but then it starts to really downtrend fairly rapidly as we head into November 19th and 20th, and then it goes increasingly negative as we move through the last, from the 21st through the 27th. The EPO index, the Eastern Pacific Oscillation, which is also going negative. So this is another indicator that favors colder in the east. Now, remember, we have to trend back just to get to near normal, never mind below normal. So, the atmosphere does have a lot of work to do with regards to how we get there. But when we look at the upper air, we can see some of the changes here that are happening. And I'll point that out. I'll pull that up for you, and you can see for yourself what happens over time. Again, this is a long process, but when we go back to the weekend here, and you can see this first weather system that's about to come through is just no big deal. All this, I could go back to what the European model had days ago with this kind of phase system and a deep low, a deep storm sitting in southern New England by Tuesday evening. It's not going to be anywhere close to that. I mean, we're just going to probably have an area of rain that's going to come up with low pressure going up the coast, but it remains relatively weak because the jets are staying separate and unfazed. You still have this flow from the Pacific. You still have the flow in Canada, pretty much confined to Canada, and this is for Tuesday of this week. But over time, you start to see some changes. First off, and this is important for the western states, is the fact that you're getting a pretty good system, a pretty strong system that moves into the Pacific West, and you can see it right here. This is for toward the end of this week. That's a healthy looking system. There's one right behind it that's moving along. We have this system that's off the East Coast and no longer an issue. Here's the flow from Canada, still kind of locked up. You've got this ridge that's building up between Labrador and Greenland. Again, all of this in the slow reorganization process. Now, that ridge, by the way, in the east builds back again toward next weekend. That's not a surprise. Has to wait for this western system to come east, which it does. And one of the things that keeps happening is as these systems move east and head into this strong ridge that's in the eastern states, they just get eaten up alive. This one actually holds together to some degree. So this, if it's true that it's like this and phased, you start to get more of Canada begins to open up. You've got this, the ridge still there between Labrador and Greenland. You have a ridge that builds out in the west. Here comes the next weather system coming into the Pacific. So it's getting busier. It's a question of whether we're going to be able to grind out some moisture out of this. Now, the system for next weekend probably would produce some snows across parts of New England with this and through western New York and some of the snow belts. We'll have to see how it evolves. But more importantly, as we go through time, when we look at the upper air, it gradually becomes a colder look, particularly because when we go late in the period, we have this big ridge that's building up in the polar regions. And that is going to displace cold air southward to some degree. Now, how much cold air? That's a big question. That's something that we're not going to be able to work out till we get into the short range. You do have this much more active Pacific flow going out into the Atlantic, so that would be a positive. With more weather systems moving across, perhaps the greater chances for some rain here, or any kind of precipitation for that matter. Let's show you what it does at the surface, because this is, let's see how it translates as far as the surface goes. And we'll change regions, and we'll go to this, and we will change to the surface map. And you can see it here. So let me just back it up for you. And when we talk about this, by the way, let's be clear, it doesn't mean it can't get warm for a day or two. Certainly, once this all gets underway, I think that's still going to be an issue. But, there's going to be a gradual cool down in terms of the air masses. Now, here's the one for next weekend. And you can see it does develop some snows up and through western New York and up into New England. Also, out in the west with the other western system coming in, you're starting to see some snows developing in the northern Rockies and so on, with action coming into the Pacific Northwest. And in fact, even further in the period, you have something of consequence that starts to move out into the Utah and the Southwest and even into Southern California, and then it gradually kind of retranslates as it goes eastward. But there's more activity still coming into the west as they move across. So this is going to be something we're going to have to watch closely over time. The specifics of the model in the latter stages in terms of the surface are kind of meaningless because they change from run to run. This was the run from late this afternoon. This was the run from earlier today. Actually keeps trying to take a low just south of over southern New Jersey, just south of southern New Jersey, with some snows up in northern New Jersey and in New York State. I mean, who knows if this is really correct or not, but it does imply a more active pattern. You see these dashed blue lines. That's a measure of colder air. So the further north you go, with these blue lines get lower and lower values. You're seeing a colder atmosphere. So, this is all a sign that at least the overall flavor across North America is changing. Again, it's a slow, grueling process, but even the look across Canada is replaced by more high pressure over time. So that's that's a sign that there's colder air that is beginning to build and will eventually penetrate into the United States. So that pretty much sums it up for the long range. Check out my latest Joe Stradamus post for more. And of course, don't forget meteorologistjoechaffee.com, weatherlongisland.com, and ssstormchasers.com.